Jeremy, I want to bring you in on exactly this point, talking about the strategy, so to speak, as a political strategist yourself, although not for Likud. What do you make of the way Benjamin Netanyahu is handling the current situation? A conundrum at best.
Well, as you said, I'm not a Likud spokesman or a member of their party, but we have to face the facts. 3 days ago, we saw a historic event here in Israel, and that is a sitting prime minister being indicted. This is something that we've never experienced within our democracy. The fact that this is also happening during this 21-day period in which we are after the second mandate and we're before the possibility of a third mandate also goes to Netanyahu's favor. Because right now Netanyahu does have a clear strategy, and I agree with Allison. It does not make sense for him to try to compromise and create a unity government within these 21 days. Instead, he has a clear strategy that it makes sense to try to push us towards elections. Now, unfortunately, a majority for him, I'm saying, a majority of Israelis do not want to have elections, and that puts a very big wrench within his plans. So the best way that he can counter that issue is to go ahead and go forth and say that, listen, I'm willing to go ahead and do what I can from my side, but what I'm expecting is for someone to go ahead and meet me halfway.
Jeremy?
Sure. Look, I think we need to recognize that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did a lot of amazing things for the state of Israel. And there are a lot of people that were very disappointed and very upset to see that indictment. Now, of course, this is a rule of law.
Even though it was coming.
Again, this is something that we have expected for some time. I don't think anyone really expected it on Thursday, but it did happen, and a lot of people are upset about it. And we are a rule of law, and part of being a rule of law means that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Right. And of course, that also means that it is within the definition of the job of the Attorney General that if he decides that he believes that he needs to go ahead and indict the Prime Minister, it's his right to go ahead and do that. And of course, it is the Prime Minister's right, if he so chooses, to go ahead and go to the Knesset and say that he wants to go ahead and ask for immunity. So again, we are we're a country of laws. We follow the rule of law, and we all hope that the Prime Minister will go ahead and be found not guilty. Even Benny Gantz said so in his speech last night. So, I hear a lot of things that definitely came within the rhetoric.
The public to go out in front of the cameras and inflame the public against the law enforcement system
so again,
of the country.
Allison, as you might imagine, that's not something that I would have said. And a lot of the stuff that does come within the rhetoric of the Prime Minister is stuff that I personally disagree with. But of course, he just did get indicted on Thursday. So obviously he's going to go ahead and say some stuff that perhaps he would, let's say in retrospect, at least I would hope, want to take back. Because again, a lot of the stuff that he has said are arguments that I do think are not the type of arguments that I would like to see a Prime Minister giving within the state of Israel. But once again, I'll bring it back to the fact that there are a lot of people that are upset about it. There were hundreds of thousands of people who went out to the streets of Tel Aviv to protest cottage cheese. We have, as I said, this first historic time where there is a sitting Prime Minister who's been indicted, and I don't see more than maybe a couple hundred going to the streets asking for his resignation. Our Supreme Court, which again is known by everybody.
Thousands flooding the streets to defend him either.
You don't, but again, you would expect it to go on the other side. Usually when you see a democracy, this type of thing happening, there are people calling for resignation. The Supreme Court just went ahead and today, just a couple of hours ago, decided to completely throw out the bid to try to force the Prime Minister to leave office. Whether we like it or not, the law says that even if he is convicted, until he exhausts all appeals, he's allowed to be Prime Minister. So again, when we are talking about the rule of law, we have to recognize, both people on the right and on the left, that there are parts of the law that we might not feel completely comfortable with. But for better or for worse, that is the democracy we live in today.
Jeremy, earlier we heard from Gideon Saar, and he criticized Benjamin Netanyahu's handling of the indictments. This response, he said his comments were irresponsible. There was so much support for Benjamin Netanyahu from the right-wing bloc in recent weeks. Do you feel what's happening now is going to see more and more divisions in the next period, this phase, this 21 days? What are your thoughts?
I mean, the weird thing about the 21 days, beyond the fact that we've never been here before, ever, within Israeli history, is that each signature is a separate signature. The Bloc of 55 was a bloc that was made of a bunch of party leaders. Here you actually need every single signature from every single MK. There are a lot of people that have always told me throughout the years, throughout various campaigns. Jeremy, we want to see, direct representation. We want to see like 120 different representatives. Well, here you have it right now. We have, for all means, 120 different parties right now. And yes, that means that you could have the right peel from the left or the left peel from the right. Anything can happen. We don't really know what is going to happen because we can't point to any historical time and say, well, something happened a bunch of years ago, so we're going to expect something to either happen again or differently. In terms of what I feel personally within the Likud, from what I've seen and from my conversations with the MKs there, the great majority of them are standing behind the prime minister. This is something that a lot of my friends in blue and white do not understand, but that's just the fact, at least where we are today.
And the fact that they are standing by the prime minister means that pretty much we're not going to see anything happen within this 21-day period, because Netanyahu is the factor that will make it impossible to reshuffle the cards and for some of the party members to considering breaking party discipline, because nobody who is in the blue and white party or in any of the non-block of 55 parties will even consider, abandoning ship for a party that's being led by, for a government that's being led by Netanyahu.
But broadly speaking,
factor, if we can talk about him for a minute, if Lieberman does join the 55 bloc, that's a stable coalition of 63 MKs.
He didn't do it till now. He's not about to start.
I'm not saying that is a likely scenario. But if we're looking at a stable government that could be in place of a unity government, since, again, we're in agreement, Allison and I, that we're not going to see unity government during the rest of what we have left of these 21 days, what I do think we could have, and again, the probability is very low, but we do have the possibility of Lieberman joining the 55 bloc.
Jeremy, your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are that we're only going to have two candidates. It's going to be the prime minister, it's going to be Gideon Sa'ar. I think the great majority of the people within the Likud leadership are going to say that they're going to wait this one out. Gideon Sa'ar cannot. He pretty much declared by accident a couple months ago during the beginning of the coalition negotiations when Netanyahu first had the mandate. So I think it'll be a very, very interesting race, assuming that this does happen. Since, it is possible that over the next few days they will decide to cancel that again. And I just remember
anyone else will dare step up?
Allison, I remember, first of all, the last Likud primaries, which didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I don't think anyone else will step up. I think it'll be the two of them.
We'll be watching those developments when they happen. Jeremy, Saltan, Allison Kaplan Sommer, thank you so much.